All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Kevin's podcast. As I always say, get the formalities out the way. Anything I say on my podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Listen, I got a special guest in the studio with me today. I got Miss Chaun. We're going to be talking about something that affects all of us. I don't care what age you is. I don't care what ethnic background you are. It's something that this is going to be a very informative podcast, and we're going to have fun with it. So without further ado, I'm going to let Miss Chaun just give us a little her background and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelvis, for having me
Yes.
on. I'm so excited to be here. It's not much to me. I'm just a little country girl born and raised
Me
in
too. I'm a
Rocky Mount, North Carolina.
I'm from Facing, North Carolina. What?
Oh, come on now. I think that's down there near me.
What? Yeah, I got
Okay.
family in Rocky Mount, Rockingham, Rocky Mount, all in there.
Look at here. And
Yeah.
Fayetteville brought us together.
Fayetteville brought us together. Amen.
I am the mother of 4 amazing adult children. I have 6 just beautiful, incredible grandchildren.
Yeah.
And I'm just out here living this life, trying to live my best life. And,
Yeah.
do what the Lord has called me to do.
Hey, that's what we all is striving to do every day. So, we had a chance to talk before we got back here. So I could, my first time meeting you, and I love your energy, and I love the topic that we're going to be talking about. So
Yes.
tell me the background. We talked about you started out in auto insurance and you moved from there into life insurance now. So just tell me the background, kind of iterate to the audience what you kind of told me, where you came from, the history till you got to this point now.
Sure. Yes, I started out as a single mom raising 4 kids, newly divorced, working in an auto insurance agency.
Okay.
Back in 1998. Doesn't that seem so far
Yeah,
ago?
I was when you said that, I was trying to think about what was I doing in 1998.
I know, right? And so I got there. I got my property and liability license. Took me 5 times
That's
to
all right.
pass that test. But
That's
look,
all right.
I did it, right?
You got it. That's all that matters.
And so just as a single parent, I always knew that there was more. And I wanted to do more for my children.
Right.
More for myself. I said I did not want my life to be a statistic where, the man leaves and the mother and the children are on welfare forever.
Right.
I didn't want that to be our story.
Wow, that's
powerful.
powerful.
I was always looking for, for more to do. So that's how I ended up in the insurance agency. I was scared to death, never knew anything about insurance or auto insurance, but got there. And I took my test and, passed that. Fast forward, we moved to Scotland County, Laurinburg. You ever heard of Laurinburg?
I know who Laurinburg is.
Look,
Listen,
okay.
Yeah, I got. A matter of fact, my Sigma chapter is at Pembroke. So we do a lot of stuff down in Lumberton, Pembroke, Maxon, and Laurinburg. All that. I know that area.
Listen, down in the country, like the real country.
Yes,
okay,
Lord, yes.
So we were there. And working there, that's when I decided, I said, well, why don't I just get my life, health, and accident insurance license as well? So did that, and I began working on the side. Like insurance is always, since the auto agency, it's always been kind of like a side gig,
hustle.
for me. Yeah. So I started working at Purcell Funeral Home under Mr. Kenneth Purcell, and I was working viewings, and him and another funeral director there, Mr. Kervin Hawkins, they really personalized funeral directors to me because I was afraid of them. Like they always look like stiff and rigid, and they look like if you touch them, like they was gonna be cold.
Yeah.
And so I was afraid of like that whole industry. So I really was stepping out on faith to even go there, and try this out. And so while I was there, I began to see the passion that they had for people, the passion that they had for what they did, how they just related and connected to people. Like people were just drawn to them. They loved them.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so, funeral directors, like, they not that bad.
Not that bad.
Yeah, they real people.
Real people,
and, like, they joked and they laughed
Right.
because, like, they just seemed, other ones I met, they just seemed so stiff and, like, they just never cracked a smile, never made a joke or,
The
anything.
true definition of Undertaker, huh?
Baby, take you under. All right. Like you scared just
Yeah.
looking at them.
Yeah.
And so we were working a viewing one evening, and I saw Mr. Hawkins stand over the deceased. And I saw him just kind of just make sure that everything was perfect, on him before his family came in. He brushed off, like the lint on his suit and everything. He made sure his hair, his beard, everything was just in perfect order. And I just sat there and I watched him, and I watched the passion that he had for what he did,
Right.
and the care, the love that he had for the family, and most of all for the deceased.
Right.
And so the family goes in, they come back out, and I see Mr. Hawkins and the wife talking.
Okay.
And she said to him, she said, "My husband really looks wonderful, doesn't he?" And he said, "Yes, he does." And Kelvis, I'm telling you, they shared the sweetest embrace. Like, I can see it in my mind right now.
Yeah.
I can feel it. I feel the love that I saw between the two of them. I can still feel it in my heart
that's
right
powerful
now.
though. That's
It was
powerful.
a moment that I'll never forget, because in that moment I saw that this industry, the death care industry, is a ministry. It's not just a job.
Right.
It's a calling. You cannot do this work except you be called,
Right.
because it's difficult, because we take on other people's burdens.
Right. Especially death.
Yes. And we take on their burdens. We pick them up in some instances, and we carry them and we walk them through these moments,
Right.
so that they can have, a memorable service, an occasion for their loved one. And so
And provide that comfort for them.
and provide that comfort. And sometimes, it's a lot on you. And, so you have to make sure that you take care of yourself, as well, because mentally it really can,
I can
wear you
imagine.
down.
I can imagine.
And so the next day, Mr. Hawkins and I were sitting outside talking, and I asked him, I said, "Do you think I'll make a good funeral director?" And he said, "Chantel, you will make an excellent funeral director." He said, you have what it takes. He said, you have that, you have the personality, you have the voice, you have that calming spirit.
You
You
do.
can relate to people.
You do. From the first time I met you, I could tell that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I said, okay. Well, I'm gonna do it. So I was trying to decide what I was gonna go to school for, because now that I had gotten the kids, they had all graduated from high school.
Right.
I said, I'm gonna go back to college, because I never went. It was between culinary school and funeral directing.
Yeah.
So I don't like a lot of foods. Like I don't like.
I love food.
I like food, but like mushrooms, liver, it's just so many things that I don't like. And I said, I don't
And
think
you growing up in the country, you don't like liver?
I did not look. Liver, it smelled good, but baby,
Ain't nothing like some liver with some onions.
it looked like cube steak, but it don't taste like cube steak. And somebody got me one time with it. And so ever since then, I was like,
It is
ain't
no
nothing
quiet
else.
taste. I'm gonna tell you that.
It is. And
Yeah.
so I said, if I go to culinary school, I'm going to have to eat some of the stuff, that I cook. And I was like, that ain't going to work for me. So I'm going to go ahead and go to funeral. So I went to Fayetteville Tech in 2010. It's a 2-year course, but it took me 4 years because I was working full time.
Right.
And there were times when I was taking a full load. Working full time, and I graduated in 2014 with my degree in funeral directing. And I started working. I was working at Herring Funeral Care here in Fayetteville.
Yeah,
Have you ever heard of us?
Yes, definitely.
You have? How you hear about Herring?
Facebook, and one of my coworkers' husband, or they divorced now, used to work there.
Oh, okay, awesome. So I was there for about 5 years.
Oh wow.
And then, and I had completed my apprenticeship there, took a couple of the exams, and then I just decided that I was just going to leave. And so I left the funeral home. I left the death care industry. And I was thinking about that today, about how I forgot that God called me.
He'll bring it back to you.
Yep, he will bring it back to you. I forgot he called me. I forgot he chose me for this. I forgot he anointed me for this, and I ran away from it. And I just did some other work in the healthcare industry and stuff, work
Right.
for doctors and things like that. But one day I was sitting at a light, and I didn't get to tell you this when we were talking before. I was sitting at a light. It was a Saturday afternoon. Beautiful, beautiful day.
Okay.
Sun shining,
Yeah.
skies blue.
Blue. Okay.
What did I see when I'm sitting at the light? What did I see go past me?
A funeral.
A funeral procession.
Yes.
And when I saw them, and it was my funeral home, it was Herring. And when I saw them, and I saw them black cars,
Yeah.
and I saw that sun beating off of that chrome,
Right.
something.
It did something to you.
Yes, sir. It did something to me. And I was like, God's not dead. He's still alive.
Yes,
Like,
he
there
is.
is still in there. And I called one of my friends, Mr. Powell, who works there. And I said, Swan, I said, I saw you guys today. And I was telling him what happened. He said, that's because it's still in there, Chaun. He said, you can't run. You cannot run from God. You can't run from what he's called you to do. He said, you need to get your life together and get yourself together.
Right.
And so after a while, I did. A couple of years ago, I came back, and that's where I am now. And I am on my journey to getting my funeral director's license. So we are like this close, like
This close.
one exam away.
Yeah, I remember you telling
Yeah.
me, and I know you going. I know you got it because it's ordained in you. It's for you. You know what I'm saying? So, we had some interesting conversation about, and I said this. I seen a bunch of reels. I can't remember the pastor's name now, but he's married to Shaq's ex-wife, and he said he's tired of having GoFund and fish fries to bury people. And I'm from the country, and down there, I mean, literally, I had since 2000, I had two uncles down my father's side, and people had to sign basically a loan or agreement with the funeral home to make payments to bury
Right.
at least one of my uncles. Okay. And it's crazy. And growing up, I've seen that a lot, especially it's black folks, not having money to bury them, or they have a little 5,000. Back in the day, see, my grandmama,
Oh, yeah.
she had the man used to come around, used to give him the cash, right?
Yep.
And she paid them policies out long, and they $5,000, $6,000. Back then that was good. But now the average funeral, it's about $10,000 more. I had a son that passed away. It's been about 7 years now, and he was only 3 years old.
Wow.
And they cost us. I mean, and that's because I wanted the best. I was emotional,
Absolutely.
but I
Yeah.
spent about $8,000 putting him away, and this is back in like 2014. 2014, yeah. And I spent about $7,500, close to $8,000 putting him away. And so that was for a 3-year-old.
Right.
Okay. So, let's talk about the different policies and the importance of, RJ talked about him, coming to you, talking to you about getting him some insurance and stuff like that. Let's talk about the process and what you tell the audience, what as a person that sells insurance in that field, what do you have to offer? Let's talk about the different policy in the process.
Sure, absolutely. So, there are so many different types of life insurance policies. You have annuities, you've got key man insurance. That's something that we was talking about. You mentioned sort of kind of a little bit when you were saying getting some insurance on your podcast. Who else would come in and keep this thing going,
Right.
When you're no longer here. You've got term life insurance, you've got whole life life insurance, also called permanent life insurance. Some people may know it as that. And you have final expense, life insurance. And so in the field that I work in, what I've decided to do is just kind of narrow down
Okay.
what I do and find my niche
Okay.
so that I can run with it run with that and be the most effective. So what I basically concentrate on is final expense. I do write term life and I do write whole life for my customers if they're coming for it. If someone is pretty much young and they don't have anything and they have a little bit of money, I will write them a term policy, because having a 10-year term policy is better than having nothing. Okay. So a 10-year, $100,000 term policy versus nothing, you can't beat it.
Can I ask a question right
Sure.
quick? So, okay, say young person, say they 20, 22 years old and they got a little bit of money and they do a 10-year term. So does that mean they have to live for 10 years for that policy to be in full effect? What is the parameters to that?
Okay. So what term means is that your policy is going to be for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
So it's either going to be a 10-year term, 15-year term, 20-year term, or 30 years. Those are the 4 that most insurance companies write. So if we do a 10-year term, that means for the next 10 years, you're covered.
Okay.
Okay. If you outlive that term, then at the end of that 10-year term, you can either renew for another term or you can purchase a whole life or permanent insurance at that time. Okay. Term, some of the attributes of term are you can get a high payout for a little bit of money. Okay.
Gotcha.
So they start at about $100,000 and everybody be like, woo, So $100,000, you could pay anywhere from, according to your age, if you're really young, like $8, $10, $16, very cheap. And so that's better than not having anything at all. The only thing is, if you outlive that term and you have to renew for another term, then it's not gonna be the same price it was 10 years before, because now you're 10 years older and you may have some health issues at that time. Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's gonna be more, not like permanent or whole life, where if whatever you pay at 25 years old, you're still going to be paying the same thing at 55 years old. You're still going to pay the same thing at 75 years old. It's payable to usually year 100, or some companies 120. Ain't nobody living to be 120 no more. So, you know.
Yeah, it's rare.
So with young people with whole life, if they get like I'll talk to them about doing a 10-year pay or a 20-year pay. And that way they'll only pay for it for 10 years or they'll only pay for it for 20 years. And after that, they don't have a premium anymore, and they have that policy, and it just builds that it keeps building that cash value that they can use.
So a 20-year builds cash value term.
Oh, not term. No term.
Just whole.
Just whole.
Just whole. Okay.
No,
gotcha.
Terms will not. They don't build cash value.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay. So, and I was talking to you because I was telling you, I've been very interested in starting a trust. And actually, I did a lot of research over the years. I had a best friend that gave me a book called Passing the Buck, and it talks about how the Knights Templar was one of the first kind of trust that was set up back in the day. When they would go off to fight the wars for the king would tax them or take their land. So what they did was they turned everything over to the church, because the church back then had so much power. And so when they were going to fight off the war, they signed their land, they turned their gold, everything over to the church. And then when they came back, the church signed it back over to them. And so the Rockefellers, if anybody followed history of Rockefellers, that's what they many years, they great grandfather of them, that's what they did. They took out life insurance policies and then they put them in a trust. And so they took out big policies, $1 million policies.
Right,
and over the years, those compound interest, and they would loan money out to the family member, and then they paid it back. And then when they, family member died, that whole policy came and it just stayed in the trust and just kept compounding. They kept the money still in the policy.
Yes.
Because this policy, I think it's called IUI or something like that, where if you got a lot of money, you can go ahead and you can get a $1 million policy, and you can go ahead and put X amount of money in there. Or they even talk about if you hit the lottery, which one day I hope I hit, you can go ahead and put that money and sign it over to an insurance company, and then you can borrow against that money. You don't have to pay any, taxes on it. So there's a lot. So that insurance has been the most safest measure to put your money in for many years.
Yes.
Going back to even to really the Renaissance time. Mm-hmm. And so by me doing research, and I was telling you that, so I've always been kind of interested in insurance policies. I have some, but I'm looking at doing some different things. And so with the final expense, like I was telling you, I got some uncles, my mom, and stuff like that. Especially older people say in their 60s, and maybe they have some health problem. You recommend a final expense, which I think you told me go up to 35.
Mm-hmm. From zero to 35,000. Some companies only 25,000 is going to be their top. Mm-hmm. Some 35,000. It is called a final expense because it's designed to cover final expenses. That's why the limit is not very high. Usually, the underwriting is pretty liberal. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they can have high blood pressure. They can have diabetes. Mm-hmm. They can have high cholesterol, things like that. Most of the underwriting questions are going to be within the last 2 years. Have you had any problems with such and such? Okay. And so if they answer yes to any of those health questions, then we're going to have to do something else, which is called like a guarantee issue policy. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing. It's a type of whole life policy. Mm-hmm. No health questions are required.
Okay.
But it has a graded benefit. And that means that if the person passes away within the first year, the company will give the beneficiary all the premiums that they've paid in plus a little bit of interest. If they pass away the second year, within the second year, they'll do the same thing. They'll give them back all the premiums they paid in plus a little bit of interest, because most companies will either have a 2 or 3 year stipulation on that guarantee issue. You have to live 2 years before the whole, say it was $10,000. You got to live 2 years before the whole $10,000 is payable, or you have to live 3.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so that's it's not your best. It's not the best, but then again, sometimes for some people who can't save, it's almost like a savings account for the first 2 or 3 years, because it's like what you put in, they're gonna get that back. It's not the best, and a lot of times, unfortunately, what I found is that people will come to me about that type of policy when it's almost too late. When they don't live a year, or they don't live the 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So come whenever the issue first arises. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then we can write you. Then typically you'll live a couple of years. You'll live in time to be able to get the full benefit. The full benefit. But unfortunately, we don't think about life insurance until it's too late.
Right.
And one of the things that I put on, a quote that I put on my Facebook page one time, is that when you need life insurance, it's too late.
Oh yeah.
It's too late.
I've heard that before. That's true. That's very true. So yeah, because personally for me, like my uncle, before my mom took that policy on, he had to have lived 2 years for that policy, and I think it's only a $10,000 policy.
It was a guarantee issue.
Yeah, and so and then he's incarcerated at this time. So I didn't know you couldn't take out insurance policy and someone's locked up, and so I didn't know that. I learned something new today. Wow, that's crazy. But I thank God that my mom did take, and it's kind of hard too, because I think I paid a couple times. It's like $179 for a 6-month term or something like that. So it's about $300 or $400 a year for that policy, and I think it's only a $10,000 policy.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive.
And you got to live 2 years, And down my way, and the thing about it is, a lot of people in my community, they draw disability, Social Security, or they draw their Social Security check, so they got a limited income.
Right.
And a lot of times they don't try to get no type of policy, no type of nothing. And again, you at the funeral home signing some kind of guarantee with them that you're gonna make these payments. Or find a funeral home they're willing to go ahead and bury you. You got to put down a couple $1,000 before they even do that. And that's the sad part, because now everybody's got to try to give up $300 or $400, at least take $3,000 or $2,500, because down there they got a funeral, Mr. Paul.
Right.
He's one of them funeral homes that if he'll bury you if you come with $25,000-$3,000 and you got to finance the rest of it.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure his interest rate ain't the kind, it ain't 0.5. I'm pretty
Right.
sure about
Exactly.
that. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think that's sad, and I think a lot of people really don't think about that, and they don't think about they can use insurance as an investment,
Right.
to put money into, and then turn around and pull that money out and take and buy real estate, and you still gaining interest on that money. You know what I'm saying? Because insurance, that's where the banks go get their money from, the insurance companies.
Exactly.
Because
Yes.
that's what insurance is very powerful. It's been around for a long, long time.
It is.
Yes, it has.
It is. And and a lot of times insurance companies get a bad rap. I was thinking about it, the other day. So many times people are when they file a claim, whether it's auto insurance or life insurance or what have you, when things don't go their way, they badmouth the insurance company. They just trying to get our money. They don't want to pay, and things like that. But I have to say, some of that I agree with. They make me mad sometimes too.
Oh yeah, that made me mad a few times.
I have seen more life insurance pay out than not. I have seen so many families are to the good, because of life insurance. But I've seen so many that are not. And that's really what drives my passion, is because I see so many families come through our doors and they don't have anything. And I mean, in the days of, as you were speaking about before, the days of the funeral home working with you, those days are almost gone. They're probably some old school undertakers that's really still doing those type of things, because most of us these days, you have to pay in full prior to the service.
Right.
And so, like we were talking about earlier, we were talking about the fish fries and the GoFundMe's and stuff like that. Well, the fish fries, they're about obsolete. People aren't doing that anymore. The first thing they're doing is a GoFundMe.
Right.
And I can't stand those, because it's not my responsibility to bury your dead. It's your responsibility to take care of your family. That's why you should prepare.
Right.
And so what has really become more popular in our culture, now we Black people, we bury our dead.
Yeah.
Cremation is on the rise.
Oh, yeah.
And it's on the rise really big.
Yeah.
Because people don't have insurance and they can't afford to bury their loved one, because like you said, the average funeral for a burial is going to be anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000, and that's going to depend on your cemetery too, because these cemeteries, the cost of these plots and open and close and stuff is like astronomical. It makes me mad, all the time. You got anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 just for that.
Yeah.
Just for that.
Yeah.
Not even including what you got to pay at the funeral home.
Right.
So, people can't afford it, and they don't have insurance. They don't have the money to do it. So they're cremating their loved ones. Now, I know some people, cremation is okay and everything. I'm not a huge believer, in cremation personally.
Right.
And it hurts me. It pains me to see a family have to cremate. That's the only choice that they have. That thing, it hurts me. It makes me want to go outside, and I'm scared of heights, but it makes me want to climb to the highest mountain and just shout out like, get covered, get some insurance, like stop all of this. I was talking to a lady today, and she was just talking about how she was telling her family y'all want to talk about everything else. You want to talk about family reunions. You want to talk about eating. You want to talk about drinking, but don't nobody want to talk about life insurance and what we going to do if, somebody die. Now we all got to put in, to take care of you, because you can't even take care of yourself.
And that ain't including bills or anything else you left back there.
Nothing that you left
and you're
behind.
not leaving anything. Not saying you have to, but I think another stigma in our community, and thank God my great grandmother and them they left a lot of land for my family, and my grandma left land for me, and my mama left land for me and houses for my son. They don't leave anything for you to build off of, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And not saying you got to go out and, necessarily take out $1 million, because you know how we are in our culture. Money and land is a big thing. You get it, you fall out over that because that should have been left to me and that and another. But we don't. I found, and this is very true, that in my experience, I found that most Caucasian, they take out those $1 million plus policies way back years ago, and they leave that and they break it down their will, so their kids and their grandkids have money, generational money. You know what I'm saying? And insurance is a way to make generational money, and that if it's taken care of right, it can keep on passing down from generation to generation. But a lot of us don't know that, and I thank God that my grandmother had the forefront, the sight to see. She worked and got the land that we have now in our family, and we own a lot of land. But a lot of, and to be honest with you, I had 2 uncles. I had an uncle just died last month. We put one of my uncles away, and they cremated him. And my uncle that died in 2000, they cremated him too. And that was because, honestly, I don't think they had but a very small policy on him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, on both of them. And so they cremated him. They did they had the, in the suit and the casket and everything for the viewing, but for the actual funeral, they had, the vase, and then they did the ceremony, because a lot of us don't go to church, so they ain't got a church, so they do everything at the funeral home.
Yes, I have so many thoughts just running through my head, when you're talking, and I'm just thinking about how, when we're talking about the generational wealth and things like that being left, and just so unfortunate that a lot of our people either didn't have the knowledge to do that, or they didn't have the means to do it, and so they don't have anything to leave.
Right.
And then on top of that, they don't prepare for death. So now the family is left with bills, and they left with burdens.
True.
When they could be left with blessings.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? If we would just prepare. I feel like having a life insurance policy, having something in place, is one of the most selfless things that you can do.
True.
Because it shows that you are not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about the people that you're going to leave behind.
Right.
Because those are the people that I'm going to be sitting across the table from. Those are the people that I'm going to have to help them carry that load and comfort them. Because you go head on wherever you going.
I'm glad you said that.
You going on, but they're the ones that's left here.
Right.
And so how selfish for us to leave our families in disarray like this. So now they're dealing with grief. They're dealing with anger. They're dealing with having to take care of these bills, and having to figure out how to put you somewhere, either in the ground or
in a vase,
or in an urn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're in a casket or in an urn. And I feel like that is, at that time, that is the last thing a family should have to think about, is the money.
Right.
That's the last thing. They're dealing with so many other things
True.
in that moment. And the last thing they should have to think about is the money. So I'm just like, stop being selfish. Think about somebody other than you. Stop going around saying this old cliche, oh, well, when I die, you could just throw me in a box.
Yeah.
You can just throw me in the backyard.
Right.
First of all, nobody's going to jail for throwing you in a backyard or in a box, okay?
Yeah.
So get some insurance so we can put you away
in the proper location.
Legally, yes, and morally and ethically, because it's that is not right. It's not right. It's just it's so selfish.
And I'll say this, and we kind of hit it on out there. Nowadays, in this environment and social platform and the world we live in, you cannot never tell the place or location. And I reference to this in this last week, I think the lady down in Florida, the guy, her and the white lady was arguing or had beef because the kids playing outside. I guess they were making too much noise. I think she had 4 kids, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm not misquoting. But anyway, she went over there because I guess she said something to the kids or something happened. But she shot her through the door and killed her. You never know. You never know when the last day. None of us know the day, know the time is going to be our last time. You could be driving down the road and get hit, and it could be your last time. You could be at the mall and they start in and out with all this mass shooting. Looking, Richmond, Virginia, I think this yesterday. Graduation, 2 dead and 5 shot. You know what I'm saying? You don't never know the day or the time, and to sit back and say, "Oh, I'm gonna get life insurance," or you don't think about it like you just so well put it. You know, you can't sit back and just say, "Oh, I'm 20 years old. I'm good. I don't need a life insurance," because depending on what kind of life you live,
that's right.
And you ain't even got to live no crazy life. You ain't got to be in no gang out here partying or somebody run the road all the time. You can just be innocent, a bystander in a location, and you could be gone. And now you haven't prepared for your family. Now again, we out here trying to raise money, GoFund. We out here trying to sell a barbecue plate, or you know, we asking the church to see what they could do. When you could have, you know, so I don't think there's not an age or a social background that should limit or discourage you from going ahead and get some life insurance and prepare, at least, like you said, like the one you recommend, you specialize in, final experience, at least something, you know.
At least something. I'm so glad you brought that up because, you know, a lot of times we think, you know, old people ought to be thinking about life insurance. And like when you, I, and RJ were talking before this, before we came on, listen, death, boy, the range is in all the ranges now. You know what I'm saying? We are burying just as many people in their 30s as we are in their 50s and 60s and beyond, but even we're going back even further, and we're burying 20 years old and teenagers.
Right.
We just buried someone who was scheduled to graduate today.
Wow.
She was scheduled to graduate high school today, and we buried her last Friday.
Wow, my God.
And so it is getting so rough. And that's why I just be wanting to just shout out, like, come, like, do you see what's happening? Are your eyes open? Like, what are you doing? What are you thinking about, in life? It's not like you have to think about this all the time because people don't want to talk about it.
Right.
You know, I had a table at an event this past weekend down in Wade, and I had my sign up that said burial and life insurance. Honey, these people, they was just walking right on past me.
Yeah, they were avoiding you.
They was avoiding me
like the plague.
Yes. And then one lady, she came up and she said, I need to see you, but I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you right now. I'll come see you when I need to. And my thought was like, what? Like, it's gonna be too late.
Well,
when you need to see me,
you won't see me. Somebody
gonna see me on your behalf, right?
Yeah.
And and I was just like, what are you thinking? You think going over here to this food truck? I know them ribs. It was right behind me. Them grills was going. The smoke was going. They had skins crackling. They had everything over there. Just just African American dream.
Yes, Lord.
And I even went over there. But you trying to tell me going over there spending your money to eat on that disposable stuff that's coming in and going out is more important than you stopping by this table just to see what I have to offer? You not think about your life. You think about your gut. Like, come on, people. Like, come on, world. Wake up. These days, we really don't know. We've never known when our last day is going to be,
right.
but it hasn't been the way it is now. You know, you can just, like we just talked about, you could just be at the grocery store or, you know,
Yeah.
doing something to mind your own business. And here you go. You done found yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time. And
Listen,
now,
when I go anywhere, Walmart, anywhere, I'm first of all, I'm packing, number one. And I'm always just looking around. I'm very alert of what's going on around me very quickly because it's just the time that we live in. That is just the time we live in.
It is. And we talked about earlier about pre-planning and or like a pre-need or a pre-arrangement. You can go to your local funeral home, whichever one of your choice, and you can do a pre-plan or pre-arrangement with them where you can go in. You can it might sound a little gory to some, but you can pick your merchandise out. Like you can pick your casket out. I've had people, you know, seen them picking their caskets out and they're like, oh yeah, this is the one I want. I want to wear the blue suit, and you can be as specific, you know, as you want. And that information is on file at the funeral home so that during that, when that time comes, it makes it so much easier, you know, for your family. Well, I lost my mom in 2020. She went to be with the Lord. And prior to that, I did a pre-arrangement for her. When I first tried to do it, it's not an easy thing to do. It was hard for me to sign, you know, to do the healthcare power of attorney. I wanted to cry that day when I was, you know, signing that. My brother and I, when we were doing that with my mom, she was, you know, in her right mind and her health. She had cancer, but, you know, she still, you know, got around great. But and so we went ahead and did it then. That was hard. So I know these things, they're not easy conversations to have, but they're conversations we must have. And so when she started getting a little bit worse, I called up, you know, my friend, Mr. Powell, and I said, I want to go ahead and do a pre-arrangement, you know, on my mom. So he came by the house. We did the paperwork, you know, the preliminaries and everything that we were going to need for the death certificate. Kelvis, when he pulled out that casket book, I broke down into tears, and I said, I can't do it. I can't do it today. He said, that's fine. He said, don't worry about it. We put everything back in the folder. And it was a year later, I called him back and I said, I'm ready now. And so he came back over and we completed it. I picked out her casket, her vault, had everything picked out. So when she passed away, when we came in for our arrangement conference, only thing we had to do was just pick out a date for the service and work out, you know, those details and, you know, pay some money. But my mom didn't have insurance. So I can speak from a place of passion because that's what happened, you know, that's what happened to me. And I had promised my mom, don't worry about your funeral. I'll take care of it. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but it wasn't something that I wanted her to worry about. I wanted her to concentrate on living and trying to be as healthy, you know, or as well as she could be under the circumstances. Don't worry about your dying now. You let me worry about that when the time comes. And so thank God for my children. And, you know, we all came together and we got it done. But I wished I had gotten her some sooner.
Right.
You know, I wish I did, but I did not, but it worked out. But the pre-planning, the pre-need, you can do a trust. It's a funeral director can only open and close a trust. And it's sort of like a savings account. They do it with a bank. And it goes into the Board of Funeral Service. It is on record with them. It's a legal binding contract, and it's a deposit account only. Anybody can make a deposit into their account. So you could pick your merchandise out. You can go through your whole service, pick what programs you want, how many death certificates, your vault, your casket. You can pick all of that out and get your estimated total. And then you'll know how much you need to be putting into this trust account.
Wow, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
You can do that if you can't get any insurance, you don't have any, then you can do a trust. And then when you pass, the funeral director goes to the bank and they close the trust out and they get all the funds out of it. Now, you may have it all paid for, but if everything you picked out was like $8,000 and you was only putting $25 a month in there for a year or two, of course you're not going to have it all, but you'll have what's in there, and then your family at that time will have to come up with the rest. But that is
alternative.
That's an option. It is an option as well. So we don't have to be out here with nothing.
Right.
There are options. All you have to do is contact somebody, and we can help you, or contact me.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
And I had my godmother. That's what she did, and my mothers have done the same. My mother has done the same thing. She's like, I don't want you to have to worry about nothing. She done picked out her casket. She done picked out her dress. She done wrote her obituary, what song she want to sing, who she want to preach the funeral, the whole nine. And being the only child, that's a blessing because I love my mom and dad. That's my heart.
Right.
And my son and my little dog Coco, I love her too. I got life insurance on her too.
Oh, come on, Coco.
Yeah, she got a little insurance on her.
That's right.
But I seen people that have done that down where I'm from. They went ahead and had everything picked out, so their kids don't have to worry about trying to find no dress, trying to do all this stuff is done. And wow, and I learned something new about that trust. That trust is a powerful thing now.
It's a powerful thing.
It's a powerful thing.
Yes, it is.
So we get ready to close this thing out. So go ahead and tell the people how they can get in contact with you. Give them your email, all your information, because we definitely gonna push this out to the audience.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So at the beginning of the year, I did establish a business for myself. It's Right Choice Professional Group LLC. And so you can reach me by my cell phone. It's 910-610-7544. 910-610-7544. You can reach me by email. My email is my name, Chantel Wright. That's CHAUNTELLEWRIGHT, no spaces, @gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook under Chaun Wright, CHAUN WRIGHT. You can inbox me there. If you want to, you can find me on Instagram at Chocolate Beauty. It's CHOL. I'm about to get, because I done spelled it, like some
That's
weird
all right.
way.
That's all right.
I spelled it some weird way, but if you start putting it in, you'll find that it's got a K in there somewhere, because I had to spell it, something different. But Chocolate Beauty, you can find me there on Instagram, and you can hit me up there. You also can reach me at Herring Funeral Care Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. Our telephone number there is 910-488-6217. You can reach me there as well.
Okay. We're going to put all the information in the podcast down in the, all that. We're going to, Ari is going to put all that in there. So,
awesome.
when we publish the podcast, that all the information been there. Well, listen, I done had a great time with you today. I thank you so much. I thank you for informing my audience. I truly learned some new things here today, and I thank you for coming through. And you're welcome back on the Kevin's podcast anytime. I appreciate you. May God bless your business, and we love you. Come back and see us again. All
Thank
right?
you so much. I appreciate you. Love you back.
Love you back. Bye-bye.